Hi, welcome to Planetary Calendar's Astro Portraits. I'm Ralph Demetrius, one of the astrologers. Our portrait this week is Gadot, who has played a number of really interesting roles, especially action roles, and that's why she's in this group. This is part of our action series. It's women actresses who have played a lot of action roles. Of course, our most famous is Wonder Woman. She's kind of a bit of an outlier in that way, and you would think so, but not really. She's a Taurian. She has the sun in Taurus. There's other people who, Uma Thurman, for instance, is another Taurian who has played quite a few action roles. But the only planet she has in Taurus is, in fact, the sun. Where does she have more planets? What signs? The two signs that we see that show up a lot, which are basically Gemini and Aries. She has the Mars in Gemini, which is interesting. That's the same as Jennifer Garner. And then she has Venus, Mercury, Pallas Athena, the warrior goddess, all in Aries. So you have this big concentration in these two signs. We tend to find Mercury-ruled and Mars-ruled signs are prevalent in these women's roles. The Mercury-ruled signs are Virgo and Gemini. The Mars-ruled signs are Aries and Scorpio. Where's her moon? Virgo. It's a Mercury-ruled sign. Virgo shows up a lot in actors, and it's because they're very good at the details. So much about acting is getting the details, getting the little stuff right. If you watch actors very carefully, it's micro movements a lot of times, little subtle things that they do, the detailed research beforehand that really matters, and that attention to detail is essential. And she has the moon as her first rising planet. It's actually in the second house. She has Leo rising. Now, this is really something that actors love having because it means they love having the attention. And if you look at her, you can look at her face and you can really see the Leo rising. It tends to make the upper part of the face quite strong, quite broad. Because he has Leo rising, she has the sun in the 10th house. So career is going to be very, very important to her. She has the Venus, Mercury, and Pallas Athena, the warrior goddess, in the 9th house. And this is interesting because, Venus in Aries is a detriment position. It's one of the dignities. It means that the planet has a distinctive role. It means it's an introvert position. It adds a lot of depth to a personality. And you would think that, actors were everything's out there. No, not really. A tremendous amount of the actor's process is inside. And you find, Natalie Wood, for instance, her entire chart was made up of planets in dignity positions. So they were either extrovert or introvert, but it was a split between the two. So she had parts, the extrovert parts are the parts that we see, the introvert parts that are the parts that are hidden, but we relate to both because we have both sides in our personality. So she has this Mars in Gemini, means she's very physically quick. She has Pallas Athena. I'm sorry, not Pallas Athena. She has Chiron conjunct the Mars. She's dealt with health issues somehow or other, probably neurological, because it could be like nerve pain or something like that. And she has Ceres there as well. But more importantly, between the Sun and Mercury, up in this area from 9 degrees Taurus to 13 degrees Aries, she has Pallas Athena. She also has the dark moon Lilith, which is kind of interesting. She may have some type of little hidden darker side to her personality that she doesn't let on. But that Pallas Athena, no, it's the warrior goddess, and it's in Aries, a Mars-ruled sign. These things are really projected out there. What's funny is that she doesn't have a strong 12th house here. And most movie actors and actresses have strong 12th houses. It's the area of make-believe. But she was born in Israel. And she did play roles in Israel. She was in movies, but she didn't become famous until she came to Hollywood. So, of course, what's going to happen in that situation? Her chart is going to pivot. And I suspect that when the chart pivoted, that 12th house filled up with planets. You know, um, that old saying years ago, go west, young man, go west, because it was the land of opportunity. One of the things that oftentimes happens, and we've seen this for centuries, and we've seen it especially in America, because when immigrants come to the United States or to the Americas from their homelands, either in Asia or in Europe, they're traveling east to west. Their charts pivot. Now, some people arrive in the country and, they die. They get there and their life just dissolves. Other people may come from poor circumstances. They come here and they bloom because the chart has shifted. In their home spot, in their home place, the chart didn't support them as much. But when they came here, different lines, different planetary lines became activated. And they evolved. We've seen this actually a number of times with looking at the charts of famous actors where they've changed their longitude. And suddenly, there's an old expression in location astrology, change your latitude and you change your attitude. It's actually your longitude that you got to change. Pick up a different line. Now, that moon in Virgo in the second house, it's actually what's called an accidental dignity. There's really, I'm not sure who came up with that term. It's actually a bit of a wacky term. We should come up with something better than that because it's not really a dignity. A dignity defines a defined role. You have a defined role, just like actors can play all these different roles. As a man, as an adult male, I would play certain roles. Those are my dignities. I could play a father, I could play the son, I could play the husband, the friend. I'm not going to play the heroine. I'm not going to play the sweet young girl. I'm going to play certain defined roles. Every planet has its defined roles. The idea of the accidental dignity means that when a planet's in a house that it relates through the dignities, they call it an accidental dignity. The moon in the second house is an accidental dignity. Why? Because the moon is exalted in Taurus, and it's in the second house, the house of Taurus, and it's in an earth sign. It means that one of her great resources is her desire to work and to serve. Virgo's all about work. And the thing that's interesting is that, for instance, because she's Israeli, she served in the military. Every able-bodied person serves in the military. She sought out the role of a combat instructor, working with weapons. That's where the Mercury comes in. Mercury was Vulcan, the forge, working with metal. And when I worked in factories years ago, foundries, there were tons of Virgos. They resonate with that metal stuff. They're just drawn to the technology of metal and things like that. And that moon in Virgo became one of her important resources. That willingness to work with those types of things. One of the things that people do with guns all the time are what? Clean them. It's the most Virgoan of things. She'd also probably make a very good winemaker because 90% of winemaking is cleaning stuff. And Taurus, the second house is all about plants and food. When she got her first big break in the Fast and Furious series, it was because she had been in the military and the director knew that she knew how to handle weapons. And that's why she first got her first big break. So that's one of her resources, second house, her resources. There's all this drive in her personality to be out there in the world. In fact, so much of her chart is out in the open. And you'll see this with very famous people. You look above the horizon out there in the world, you have Mars, the sun, both, powerfully placed, 10th and, 11th and 10th houses, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter. They're all out there in the open. She lives her life, very much out in the open. But Moon, the home, it's very personal to her. She doesn't really, you see pictures of her home life now and then, but she really separates that. And in the fourth house is her home life, right? It's in Scorpio, the most private of positions. So she really keeps her family and home life away from the world. You may get the occasional picture. Saturn's in that house at 25 degrees Scorpio. Now that's also interesting too. Saturn has to do with ambition. It's relatively close to the South Node, her history. 25 degrees Scorpio is a position found with a lot of jurists. In fact, a tremendous number of the Supreme Court justices over the years have had positions right around 25 degrees Scorpio. When she was in college, she was preparing for work in law and in government. That was her pursuit before someone said, "Oh my God, you're gorgeous. You should model. You should act. You should." And she was off to the races. In fact, she's in between college, she would go off and do these things. But she had a very strong interest, and it was probably a reincarnational interest. She probably was, a jurist in the past. Neptune's in the 6th house in Capricorn, so she has this real talent, this real skill with imagination. But the moon rules the 12th house. The 12th house is the ocean. The moon is in Virgo, the sign of work. Does it mean that she would cross the ocean for her work to get to her land of imagination, to her 12th house? Right? So even though she's a Venus-ruled person, right, her Venus is in Aries, the sign of Mars. Right, so she's got that martial qualities. While they look at this wonderful, beautiful Taurus woman. She probably just smells nice. But they know she's got this martial side to her that they can just feel, and they should cast her in roles where something that's exciting is going to happen. So that's the chart of Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman, and one of the people who very much inspired this series about actresses who play action roles. So until next time, come see us on Tuesdays when we post our portraits, and come see us on Fridays when we post our forecast for the coming week. You can find that as Planetary Calendar Astrology on YouTube. Please subscribe and like us. Click the little alarm bell so you get reminded. You can also find our calendars. We're doing shipping out the 2022s right now at planetarycalendar.com in all of its various different sizes. I feel like it's like baby bear, the mama bear, the daddy bear, the granddaddy bear, I guess. And there's also an electronic version too. It's for those of us who, if it's not on my phone, it doesn't exist. So until next time, be well.